Hey, what is up, YouTube? It's the Tominator, and today I wanted to look back on the Lou Ferrigno Legacy contest. And I know it feels like it's been a while because Cedric McMillan has already gone on to compete and win another contest in the San Marino Pro, but really this was only 2 weeks ago, so I wanted to take a look back at it while it's still pretty fresh and go through this pose down between the top two, which was a very good head-to-head battle between Brandon Curry and Cedric here. And these guys were head and shoulders above the rest of the lineup. These were really the only two bodybuilders worth looking at, in my opinion. No offense to everybody else, but these were the big names of the show. And so Brandon Curry ended up winning. Cedric was second, and I don't think that should come to anybody's surprise because Brandon was better conditioned. He was a little sharper, a little bit drier than Cedric. And as we all know, or should by now, conditioning is the name of the game. Okay, so it's not all about mass like how it used to be 10 or 15 years ago. Now, the guy who's going to win most often is the guy with the best conditioning. You know, as long as he's not getting blown out of the water in terms of mass, or he doesn't have complete development. He's missing a major body part like thighs or back or something. The most conditioned guy is probably going to win. So that's what happened here, and I think Brandon Curry was the deserving champion. That said, Cedric looked really good as well. And I think that this was a better overall package that he brought here than he did at the Olympia, much better. He was way off at this year's Mr. Olympia, which is why he fell all the way to 10th spot. And I think that he was even sharper here and better here than he was when he won the Arnold Classic last year. So Cedric kind of stepped it up. Brandon Curry, on the other hand, was not quite as good as he was at the Olympia, I think. So he kind of regressed ever so slightly. Again, it could just be differences in lighting or camera angle, who knows, but to me he didn't look quite as sharp as he did just a couple months ago. So anyway, let's go through these poses one by one. So the front lat spread, it's close, man. Like, I really like Cedric's physique better in this pose. I think with his bigger frame, he's just naturally a bigger guy with a wider structure, and I think that serves him very well in the lat spreads. And I think if you were to trace an outline of these guys' physiques, Cedric is the automatic, easy #1 choice. But again, Brandon Curry has better conditioning. You can see that through the quads. You can see it even kind of through the midsection and pecs and everything. He just looks a little bit harder, a little bit sharper. So I could totally understand if the judges gave him this pose. Personally, on the basis of conditioning, I probably would too. But that said, I like the way Cedric's physique looks more in this pose. I think that he's just naturally more suited to it than Curry is. But Curry does have one thing going for him, and that's a smaller waist than Cedric. Cedric, he doesn't have a bubble gut or anything, but his waist is a little bit wide. He's a bigger guy too, so it's not like it's way too wide, but it just look at it compared to Curry's. Curry's is tighter, so that's helping him with the V taper. Even though Cedric's lats are bigger and they flare wider, Curry's V taper looks to me a little bit more pronounced. But, Cedric's filling it out pretty good too, so it's very close. And that's pretty much the name of the game here, and I'm going to be saying that a lot because this was a close-fought battle. So let's carry on here into the side chest pose. And from the side here, man, I think Cedric even closes the gap a bit. Like, Cedric, to me, if anything, looks even a little sharper than Brandon now, especially if you look through the arms. Even through the pecs, perhaps, through the abdomen. It looks like Cedric's making a little bit more of a conscious effort to flex his abs. But that said, I feel like Brandon's chest, his arms for sure, are just thicker than Cedric's. He's kind of filling out his frame a little bit more than Cedric is here. Cedric looks a little bit flat in this show, so he brought up the conditioning a bit, but he lost a little bit of fullness, and that's very evident when you see him. We'll see him at the end in the front double bicep. I'll point that out again. But you notice it through the pecs a little too. His pecs just look a little flatter, whereas Curry's definitely look thicker. So I could see him winning this pose because the conditioning is very close, but Curry just looks a little bit thicker and he's kind of saturating it more. So that said, Cedric looks great. Not to take anything away from him, man. In the back double bicep. So these guys are very equally matched in this pose. It's very competitive. What I do notice about Cedric, though, is that he seems a little bit more uncomfortable in it, a little bit more unstable. Brandon Curry's kind of locked in. He's hitting it like how Phil hits it. He just kind of nails it locks it in and holds it tight. Whereas Cedric's kind of squirming a little bit. He looks a little bit awkward in it. His symmetry's thrown off slightly. You can notice in the lats there. The right one's kind of a little bit lower than the left. The arms aren't quite on the same level. I think he needs to actually raise his elbows a little bit. You can kind of see his biceps getting overwhelmed by his shoulders, and I just don't really think that he's hitting it as effectively as Brandon Curry. And when it's this close of a contest, those little attention to detail when it comes to the posing makes a big difference. So in terms of their actual physiques, Cedric probably has maybe more detail, maybe more actual width through the back, but it's very close because, again, Curry's hitting it a little bit better than him, and Curry's traps are much thicker and bigger than Cedric's. Even his shoulders are probably larger than Cedric, and his biceps look more impressive. So I would personally give this one to Brandon all day. I think Cedric looks good in it, but he's just not really hitting it to the best of his abilities, and I think that that's actually kind of a weakness in Cedric's game. Everybody likes to praise the guy for his awesome, classical style of posing, and I'm among those people. I applaud his efforts to try and bring back that traditional posing that we used to see in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and is almost extinct in modern day bodybuilding. So my hat's off to him for trying, but he does put together some great routines with some very aesthetic non-compulsory poses. But in terms of his actual skill as a poser, I don't think it's really there yet. I think he needs to kind of work on his grace, on the smoothness of his posing, and just holding poses more still. I think that he's actually not that great of a poser, and that's not hating. It's just I'm just observing. I think that he needs to kind of not shake as much and just work on holding poses, being a little bit more graceful, maybe. So that's the back double bicep. I give it to Curry. Pretty close, though. Cedric still looks great. And unfortunately, the video just kind of freezes here in a second for like 10 seconds. I don't know what happened, but we won't get a look at the rear lat spread, unfortunately. It's the only pose that we missed, though. That's the good news. So in a few seconds here, they're going to be transitioning into the side tricep, so we will catch that one. And again, we're going to see they both look great. I think Cedric's tricep actually it looks better than Curry's. He's displaying it more. He's the way that Cedric's hitting the pose a little bit more straight to the side. You do get a better look at his triceps, so that's the plus. On the negative hand, Curry's kind of opened up a little bit more, and for that reason, I think that we're seeing a lot more separation between his front delt and his pecs. I think his upper body overall looks more impressive just because he's opened up a little bit more. So he's giving more illusion of width than V-taper. I know in the side tricep V-taper, what are you talking about, Tom? But I don't know how else to put it other than his upper body to me, aside from Cedric's tricep, the rest of his upper body looks more impressive. Cedric's traps look a little bit more hunched. His chest isn't as open. Even his abs, it's close there, but personally, I like the way Curry's hitting it. Not so much with the foot sticking out like that, but a second ago, if we back this thing up, and he was hitting it like this right here. This to me is money, and Cedric's good, but not as good as what Curry's showing us. So it's super close, man. And I'm not hating on Cedric. Cedric is my boy. Okay, I love Cedric, but I think Curry's just doing it a little bit better. So let's carry on. And in the ab and thigh, Cedric's got great quads, though, man. If he could just bring up that graininess factor a little bit. Now, in terms of the abs, I'm actually disappointed in both these guys right here. I don't really see a good six-pack on either of them. On the one hand, Cedric's got that gnarly gap going on there. His abs look all messy and lopsided, kind of, like they're not even. Whereas Brandon, it's just like he's got no split between the left and the right side of his abs, man. It's just like solid row straight across, and like what the hell is going on here, man? None of these guys today really has a proper six-pack anymore. None of their abs are sunken, It's just, I don't know what's going on. I think it's just too much HGH and insulin, to be honest. Like they ruin their abs, man. But that said, they still both look pretty good in this pose by modern day standards. And I would give it to Curry. Why? Because you were seeing a lot more dryness. You know, look at the legs. It tells the tale right there. More kind of graininess, more vascularity through the quads. Even more of you can see a little bit more detail, like slight striations coming into play. Whereas with Cedric's legs, it just looks like, you know, kind of smooth and oily. And I don't mean oily in the sense of synthol, but just we're seeing more kind of sheen and shine off of his legs, which is normally a good thing. I don't have a problem with that. That's to be expected. These guys do get oiled up and shit, but they just look a little bit more smooth compared to Curry's and not as hard. So I would give this one to Curry. I also like, even though his abs aren't split, and I don't like either of their abs that much, I think Curry's are a little bit cleaner. So and I think it's going to freeze again here. Yeah, this video, fuck man, it's hard to find good footage of these shows nowadays, these smaller shows in particular. But we will get a look at the most muscular here in a second. There it is. Okay, Cedric looks great in this most muscular, and this is probably the most impressive most muscular I've seen him hit in, I don't know, maybe ever. Like, we're seeing all sorts of vascularity through the biceps, even through the traps. His delts and pecs have kind of come to life. We're seeing a little bit of striations there. And yeah, it just looks good, man. It's just, his physique is popping right now. It's popping, yo. And Curry, well, Curry's transitioning, so let's carry on. Curry's crab is no slouch either, man. They both look tremendous in this pose. And I think Curry actually has the edge in arms, especially when it comes to the fullness. He just looks bigger through the biceps in particular than Cedric. And for that reason, ooh, man, this is tough. Do I really have to pick? Can I give them a tie? Because they both look tremendous. Like, if we just rewind this here for a second, there's Curry's version, but Cedric's is freaking awesome too. So, okay, I'm just gonna tie him. I think Cedric was actually showing a little bit more separation there. So, but Curry looks amazing too, man. And oh yeah, let's just play it out. They're done with the most muscular. So I give that one a tie, and that's probably being nice to Cedric because Curry's, yeah, again, conditioning is a little bit better, but whatever. In the front double bicep. So here's what I was saying earlier about the flatness. Look at Cedric's biceps, just very underwhelming. Look at Curry's, like huge, especially that right one. There might even be a slight asymmetry going on here, but nonetheless, it's not enough really to throw off his lines. And I like Curry's V-taper more in this pose, because his lats appear to be flaring out wider, especially relative to his more thinner waist. And again, Cedric just looks a little too faded here. So Curry looks much sharper in this pose. So I can totally see why they gave it to Brandon Curry. I think he deserved to win this one. But that said, Cedric looked phenomenal, and I'd like to see him continue to build on this. I got to check out that San Marino Pro show. I haven't really watched the footage from that, but if I can find good footage or pictures from that competition, I'll try to cover that one as well, because Cedric did win that show, and Brandon competed in it as well, I believe, so he did get his revenge. So, but anyway, this is the Lou Ferrigno Legacy 2017, my personal recap. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And thanks for watching, everybody. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more. And until next time, I'm the Tominator, signing off, and I'll be back.